Imagine a vibrant discussion between people that includes both openness and critical thought in the pursuit of truth. The Purchasing Truth podcast is an experience, a journey, an exploration of the impact that negative messages in politics and the media have on our families, community, society, and nation. Join your hosts, Bill Stierle and Tom Hazard, to discover new concepts and language strategies that will reveal effective ways of establishing truth. This podcast series will tackle current events, leadership challenges, healthcare confusion, integrity in business, and many other areas that affect us all. Gain clarity and understanding of the various truth perspectives. Welcome to Purchasing Truth.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Purchasing Truth. I'm Tom Hazard, along with your host, Bill Stierle. And you know, Bill, there are so many troubling things happening in our country right now, and actually in the world to an extent, some domestic, some international. And I've been thinking about, my gosh, the rules keep changing, or maybe there are no rules, or why are we allowing the rules to be changed? It's sort of, I use this expression, it seems like, we keep moving the goalpost or in certain aspects in our culture here in the United States,
Yes.
especially in our political climate. And I think that's, a good place to start today, because I think that people are having a lot of trouble reconciling where truth lies in all this, or how truth is changing, or of course, as we say, being purchased.
Yeah, Tom, this is a tough time for us now. When we go down and start exposing how justice isn't applied evenly, how there's certain selections that are being made and take place that are not in alignment with truth, when truth is so, like, don't look under that rock over there. We know that there's something that is underneath that rock over there. Just don't look at it. And we're going to vote on what we're not seeing. And then when we find what's underneath the rock later, we're going to say, oh, move on. We're over it. We've got 3, 4, 5 things in the environment at this time, whether it's the Judge Cavanaugh, here's the thing that's under the rock, here's this book, here's this new discovery. FBI didn't interview enough people. There were people that showed up, but their authorities or their bosses said, oh, no, we're not going to interview that person. That's going to be outside the scope of the investigation. What does that mean, outside the scope of the investigation? Isn't the investigation just the investigation?
Yeah, one would hope it would be.
So what are we going to do? I mean, the question, what are we going to do with law and justice moving forward? What are we going to do with law and justice? And when somebody does, or something that happens that's wrong, who's going to be accountable to fix it? And are we going to continue to punish, because we are regrettably in a punitive system? We are not in a restorative system of justice. Are we going to keep doing penal, penitentiary responses in an uneven way, applying different force or levels of truth of investigation? Or are we going to allow one race, one side of the aisle, one city to get away with injustices and not really do a better job of accountability? The problem comes from when an accountability is applied to a punitive system is different than when accountability is applied to a restorative system. We don't have a restorative system, we have a punitive system. Therefore, I don't want to punish this college frat person for bad behavior because they're only, they're only 19 years old. It's going to ruin them for the rest of their life. Oh, but I do want to apply the full weight of the justice system to this 19-year-old inner city kid for making a mistake.
Well, we've seen an example of this quite recently, Bill, actually, with the college cheating scandal. And, Felicity Huffman pled guilty to paying $15,000 for doctoring her child's, having somebody doctor her child's SAT exam. And she got 14 days in prison. The prosecution was seeking 30 days in prison. The interesting thing about this, it came out a story that there was a woman, an African American woman. I don't know if you heard this story, but an African American
Yes.
woman who had changed the address of where her child lived so that she would, to a friend's house, I think it was, or a relative's house, so that she could attend a better school district. And clearly, what I would call a much lower level offense than bribery or paying someone to fix a test. This is falsifying your residency.
Right.
And this woman was initially convicted and sentenced to 5 years in jail. Now, a footnote to that is the the judicial system very quickly changed that sentence, and she did not serve 5 years in prison. I believe she didn't serve any time in
Anytime.
prison.
Yeah.
It got reduced. So I do want to acknowledge there was a correction.
Right.
Thank
Right. Thank God.
Thankfully. Yeah,
Thankfully.
yeah.
Right. Thankfully.
But still, it still really highlights an injustice due to race, class, what society would view as, I guess, different classes of citizens, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's we saw a part of this, the big kerfuffle, and kerfuffle is such a generous way to talk about it. It's almost like a light humorous moment when I use the phrase kerfuffle. Very sloppy with my language this morning. It seems like it's a good point. The Vietnam War, when a senator's son didn't go to the war, avoided the draft, but the
Oh yeah.
person that did goes, and there's a whole song and a whole movement around. Wait a minute, I'm not no senator's son. I'm a I'm not a fortunate one. So that's the fortunate one song. It's are you fortunate? And if you're fortunate, then the law applies differently to you. If you're going to Yale, it's different than you're a 19-year-old with indecent exposure in outside a bar, urinating on the wall after being drunk, and you're 19, and you will get time, and it will cost you money. But if college freshmen will be college freshmen, and they get drunk, and they swing their penis around, and
They
so.
do some really well, silly would be a nice way to put it. Stupid would be another way to put it. Things, right?
So let's go to the two systems, the punitive system versus the restorative system. If we
Okay.
had a more robust restorative system, these things would be talked about in perspective and perception of each other. And what we would do then is do a better job of restoring a moment where and assign where is the damage done and where's the level of accountability. One of the quickest things that helped heal South African's apartheid system was doing a peace and reconciliation courts. That was the thing that helped that country come back from this oppressive separate system where crimes from one race was done to another race. where death was caused by the ordering of some authority figures towards a race. And there's nothing like a mom venting, crying, telling an officer, hey, you killed my son. And that person has to listen to that.
Wow.
And that person, for their part, going like, yep, I killed your son, and I was ordered to do it.
Wow.
So that's the truth part of it. Truth and reconciliation is, I get to bring the truth, and we get to be proportional and own the accountability on the inside. Everybody's going to know that I followed orders blindly. And it came from that guy up there. Now, that guy up there that gave me that order, that person can come sit here too and say, I was given orders by the person above me. Truth, reconciliation. What is going to be the reconciliation piece to that? We're not going to put all of these people that oppressed and murdered people, we're not going to take that group of people and stick them all in jail like they just did it to us. We're not doing that. There are going to be limitations on their experience moving forward because we do need some form of accountability. Ankle bracelets, living at home, but there's a lot of things you can't do now because you took the freedoms and lives away from others. There's a certain sense of, here's what this is going to look like. Who are the people then, Tom, do we need to lock up? Who?
Well, that's a very tricky question to answer, isn't it?
Well, how about let's make it simple. Only people that are a danger to society. Only somebody that is going to harm another person. That there is a physical or habitual pattern. Hey, we kind of gave you a break last time. Kind of did it again. It doesn't look like that you're going to stop doing what you're doing. Therefore, we need to protect the rest of society from what you're doing because you're a person in harm's way. You're harming other people. You're not healthy for our society. Therefore, we need to move you.
So that would suggest first-time offenders maybe get a pass. Repeat offenders don't.
Correct. We're looking at physical, mostly, psychological, possibly. So here's a person doing something, and there is an extreme cost of exposure for the action that you did. Whereas Brett Cavanaugh, as a college freshman that did this thing, the adults in the room would not say freshman boys are going to be freshman boys. Now, freshman boys that do this need to be initiated into adult behavior. Our society does not accept this kind of behavior. And we are going to take that out for a spin. Is it a public shaming? I think it's more like an initiation versus a public shaming. Public shaming means I got to carry shame and guilt and my self-worth has got to take a ding. Initiation is, you're acting like a boy. You need to act like a man now. You're acting like, a spoiled person. You need to act like a young adult.
Well, let's take Brett Kavanaugh for a minute. I think it's an interesting segue because this whole piece about the whole reality of, what are we going to do with law and justice moving forward? As you said earlier, this is a big concern because here there's a new book that came out and also some articles in the New York Times that are pointing out that back during the Judiciary Committee hearings to decide whether Brett Kavanaugh's nomination at the Supreme Court is going to go to a full vote of the Senate, at one point they took a pause and they said, you know what, there's no harm in having the FBI do a little more digging into some of these new allegations for a few days. The Republicans on the committee really wanted to have the vote and move it forward and get it done. I think it was Jeff Flake, the senator from Arizona, the one Republican who said, wait a second, guys, there's no harm in looking at this a little further.
Yep.
So they look at it, and 3 days come around, they get a report from the FBI. They basically say, there's no there, or there's not enough that causes us concern. We're going to go to a full vote. And he was voted, I believe, on a party line, got through committee, and then was voted by the Senate, and then again was approved to be Supreme Court justice. Well, now we're learning there was more to this FBI investigation story.
The same thing, and just to minimalize it, and then just to shake our head about it a little bit more. The same thing happened in the Clarence Thomas hearing, where there was another woman ready to go, standing, waiting to testify, that was going to tell a similar but different story about things that Clarence Thomas said to her that were outside the experience of an adult male talking about sexuality. So she was sitting there waiting, and one of the senators at the time says, well, we're not going to need your testimony now. No, they needed to bring her testimony up. She's sitting there going, wait, I don't understand why you don't need my testimony. You want to do truth, don't you?
Apparently not.
You want truth. Apparently not. See, when people try to protect the need for respect, protect votes, protect the need for recognition, acknowledgement, self-worth, identity, our identity won't look good if we say or do these kinds of things. We're going to give the other side something to run against. How could truth be used as something to run against? I'm shaking my head a little bit. Is like, gosh, isn't truth a good thing? Not for children, it's not. Because
really?
if you do truth, they lose choice. And there's one things about children and Americans. We love our choice. We like choice at the expense of the environment. We like choice at the expense of our health.
I can see that.
We don't want to know what's in our food because we're going to lose choice. Because if we know what's in our food, then we have to make here it comes, healthy choice. No, I want my healthcare to fix that. It's like, you're the one who's putting junk in your body. I don't want to see it. If I don't see it, I don't know it. Yeah, I'm going to have to pay for it with being overweight. And there's this diabetes things that goes with that. And there's this other, because it's like billions of dollars that are being spent in the healthcare system are being fed by the food industry.
Oh, sure. And
Right.
that's where, we could go off for a long time on how we don't have a healthcare system. We have a sick care system. That's a whole different thing, right? But which I don't want to go down that rabbit hole today.
No, absolutely not. But the main thing in the law and justice moving forward is that, are we going to be a society that advocates for truth and does scary honesty, and be able to move our mindset away from a punitive system into a restorative system? Restorative system is the way out. the restorative system does a better job of going like, yeah, there's been a lot of injustice being done here. This is not justice. It's not justice what's happening in Flint with the water crisis. It's not justice happening in, Newark with their water crisis. There's no justice for low income people in those cities, that real estate markets are depressed, that there are poor people there and people of color there, and nobody's responding from to make a to make a to provide protection for young people. No, we're going to just put that off. We're not going to. Yeah, there's going to be problems there. Golly,
Well, gosh,
wow.
I can't even see in my mind's eye what a restorative system would look like right now, Bill. I have to be honest with you, because it seems like truth is so under assault by even the president of the United States. And just
That's
to
right.
stick with the Sean Cavanaugh thing for a minute, because there are several aspects to this where not only do we learn this new book came out, and the New York Times articles that are sharing with us how there were more people the FBI knew about and just did not investigate at the request of the White House. The very idea that the White House could say, well, okay, FBI, you can go and investigate this, but only interview these people. Like you said earlier, don't look under this rock over here,
That's
because
correct.
we don't want to find what's under that rock. Just look here and make it. I mean, it's like to put up the appearance that there was an investigation and nothing was found is very scary. But then, sorry, hold on, I lost it. I had a really good thought. Editors
Well,
are going to have to take
the
this
nice
out.
part of the nice part of what you're saying, Tom, is during the Nuremberg trials with Nazi war criminals, there was a question. How could you and your men do this horrific act of putting the people through the gas changer? How could you do that? I think it was Eichmann. I've got to, and my German's going to be really terrible here. Amtssprachen. It's a term.
Okay.
Amtssprachen. It's me and my fellow officers had a term for it. Amtssprachen. It loosely means office language. It's because authorities told us to do it, we were compelled to do it.
So as if they were nothing more than a machine that
That's
was a
correct.
button was pushed and therefore it
That's
did
right.
it. Right.
That's why we did it. We are following orders, because if we did not follow orders, we would die. In other words, the order of things and our own life, self-preservation, overrid our moral and ethical response of not killing others.
Sure.
Now, did anyone die because of Cavanaugh's experience? The Cavanaugh experience.
No.
No, but there was damage done. If this person had this experience of this young adult, and she was a young adult, and all of a sudden there was this thing that took place.
Oh yeah. Oh,
That
there's
was
definite harm that occurred, no question. I think it
harm.
was psychological harm, mental harm. You just heard, if you haven't seen Christine Blasey Ford's testimony, I mean, her husband didn't understand why in this new house they had, she wanted 2 front doors put on it in 2 different locations of the house. And it had to do with her need for safety to be able to escape something and not have only one potential exit from a room or from a house. That's, I think we can all safely say, not normal.
It's damaged. It's a damage. The word normal doesn't help us here, but the word safety does help us here, Tom. The need for safety was not met from a traumatic experience at 14, and the need for safety was so impacted that it came into the person's adult life. And here's this person that was the activator of it. Now, Was that young child, Cavanaugh, responsible for the way she took it and the way she was damaged? And the answer is that's not why she was testifying. She wasn't testifying to make him responsible. She was testifying to do scary honesty about the truth that they were nominating into the court. That's what they were doing, about a person who struggles or had struggled or has struggles with sexuality, in the past. And do you
Well,
want
and
that?
just the proper treatment of your fellow human being. I mean,
Right.
whether sexuality or not, or restraining her, preventing her from leaving. I mean, there's all sorts of aspects to this. But the rather scary part about this is to see the president tweeting when this information comes out in the New York Times and this latest book that there was other people that weren't investigated. Trump appeals openly to the Justice Department in his tweets and says, Justice Department, save Brett Kavanaugh, as though that is actually a responsibility of the Justice Department, that it's his personal defense team.
He doesn't he either A, he doesn't understand that those two things are not supposed to be conflated, or B, he is his own ability to meet his own need for choice, to have anything he wants at any time, includes running over the legal system, which he has a great history of. He has a great history of running over the legal system with all the lawsuits, all the bankruptcies. He's run over them with very, very little consequence to him. Very little consequence.
I agree, Bill. And I think that's an example of our American society. And the more money you have to be able to pay for lawyers, usually you can run the clock out on, pretty much in a civil case, pretty much anybody else that can't afford to outlast you and purchase your own truth.
Yeah. That very, very powerful, Tom. I think we could take this thing, moving the goalpost, because truth and moving the goalpost has to do with, how does the money work? How does money and how does a person's status influence moving the goalpost? What are we going to do with law, and what are we going to do with the legal system and the justice system moving forward? The TV show Law and Order, that used to look very clean and clear, and because it looked clean and clear that the legal system was working hand in hand with the justice system, we've got a brand new TV show that's coming up. It's not going to be Law and Order. It's going to be called Law, Order, and Privilege.
Yeah.
Is the new TV show. Is here's the law, and here's the order, and here's the influence that privilege has on it. Law and order and race. Here's the law, here's the order, and here's the influence that race has on that. Law and order and sexuality. Here's the law, here's the order, and here's the influence, if you're a man that it happens to, or if it's a woman that it happens to, and the inequality that shows up with that. I mean, we have a whole new TV shows, Tom. We have 3 new TV shows that can be clearly cut and done. It's like, here's this case, here's the law, here's the law, here's the order, here's the justice system, and here's the influences of race and privilege and sexuality on that, and sexual orientation on that system. Law, order, and the Second Amendment. Here's the Anyways, this
Yeah,
person's
we could
right
go on.
to live is not as important as this person's right to carry the gun that just affected this person's right to live.
Right.
What the our system needs to do that. So Tom, as we kind of come to the conclusion of a very complex issue of how do we get the punitive system, the penal system, the penitentiary, the penitence, because that's the way the system was built on, is a person goes to jail to think about the thing they did and come back after a penitent time, and then somehow follows the rule of God not to make the same penitent mistake again coming out. Gosh, if our recidivism rate was not 74% right now, that people go out and then come back in, I think the penitentiary system would work. But, it's just not working right now. So really what we really need to do is look at what are we going to do with the restorative system? How are we going to apply truth and investigate truth, so that what happens is that, here's the truth and here's the consequence for that, and here's where the accountability shows up because of that.
Well, it's very, very interesting that you put it that way, Bill, because as you're saying that, I'm thinking, well, how can you have a restorative system if certain people can purchase their way out of even a determination that they did something wrong? And that's sort of the privilege side of it, right? And now I'm thinking, I'm sure there are numerous examples of people of privilege being able to afford lawyers and outside experts who give opinions and convince a jury that the individual doesn't need to be responsible, right? And so then they don't get restored. They got off. They got away with it.
So our next show, as we kind of wrap this one up, our next show is going to be Truth and Privilege. How does that sound, Tom?
Oh, I like that. It's really closely related to some of what we're talking about here, but I like the idea of truth and privilege and taking that out for more of a spin, because all these things, and eventually, Bill, I do hope we get to the restorative and the reconciliation part, because this is very disheartening. As we go through all this, you can just find time and time again how truth is purchased, how truth is just outright assaulted.
Yeah, we could have some gratitude and appreciation if we make the turn as a nation and do some things that's similar that South Africa did with their systems of justice and their systems of things, and the rewriting, the honesty that they had to face moving forward to get closure and to get a greater healing to take place. I think we can do some really kind of nice things moving forward. So, as a nation. Okay, Tom. Well, thanks a lot.
Sounds great, Bill.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this Purchasing Truth podcast. We trust that you have enjoyed this engaging and thought-provoking conversation. Our hope is that you've received value, found clarity, and broadened your truth perspective in this episode. If you did, leave us a review or visit our website, purchasingtruth.com. Join us again for another informative and content-rich discussion here at the Purchasing Truth podcast. Don't just accept whatever information comes your way. Join the discussion. Discover your own voice. Purchase your own truth.